Hi, my name is Bob Greenyer, and I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. So welcome this 14th of June 2026, when we'll be discussing AIM 3. Yes, not only circles within circles, but 3 circles. Hi, Marty Angel. Power and Prep, Overwhelmed Games, Estonia's. Get that beer in. Hello, Merlin's Boy. Hello, Nox555. Screwdriver Tuning and Green Hiker are also in the house. Hello, Phil. Great to have you here. And EBB2421. Hello, Nick Moore in the UK there. Hi, Gordon Doherty, also in the UK. And Alex Del Castillo down there in Southern America. Hello, Daz Pizzazz, Riandertal, and Austin Summerall. It's great to have you here. So I'm going to just give it a little while to let people come in. And I am going to fiddle about, putting some extra slides in for you. It's been a while. Yes, I came back for a brief comment recently. In part, it was trauma, which hasn't got any better. And in other part, it was because we really needed to move on to AIM 3. We were kind of in the transition between 2 and 3, and we'll talk about what they are and where they come from. And I think we can well and truly say we are in AIM 3. So how are we going to best achieve that? Well, we're going to talk about thoughts that came out of my trip, and I'd like your input as to how best to achieve that. But it was fun. So let me just drop these things in here, and I'll be with you shortly. And yes, for those people that are called shortly, I'm not just talking to you. Right. Hello, the civilianized animal. Civilized animal, I should say. How you doing? Hi, Corky Goss. Yes, we have a New Yorker also here. The Haggis as well. Wonderful to hear you here, see you here from Edinburgh. All right. So Austin Summerall also wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so as you may or may not know, about 3 months ago, I was sent a competition brief at about 5 p.m. in the afternoon. Thank you, William Kelly, to a competition called the Flux Capacitor, no less, which was a group of Silicon Valley people who wanted to see technology that would be transformational and to maybe see if they could support it. So I had to feed the kids and get them ready for bed, and by about 10 o'clock, I was able to, thank you very much, follow the rabbit hole for that $20. Extra coffee tonight. Wonderful. And so I was going to, I wrote this brief, which was very short, answering their questions, and sent off the flux capacitor video and my paper that I did with Bin Chuan Huang and his colleagues, and some other materials, and I got through to the final. I don't know how, but I did. So I thought, well, they threw in $1,000, although I haven't got it yet. Bit of a problem there. To help go across to the US. And I thought, well, there's some other people I want to see on the way over, and maybe I can see them whilst I'm adjusting to the time zone on the way through, and it won't cost any difference on the flight, and so I can kill many birds with one stone. And so that was great, and so I'm going to tell you a bit about it. And I'll tell you a little bit about my journey with some little pictures and some humorous things that were there. Anyway, let me just drop these in here for the sake of you seeing them, because that's very important to me. You can share the journey that we've all been on. Okay. Now, I have to say, when I last went to San Francisco, or rather, the first time I went to San Francisco, I was staying with Alan, and I never actually saw daylight. I just went to the lab, worked, and then and I went there after dark, and I came back after dark. And for a couple of times, it was like that. But then I went up and saw a friend who was living in Mount View, and I took a Caltrain up from Mount View to near the stadium. And I like to walk around the city, as one does when they are visiting somewhere for the first time. And I decided to walk from the stop near the stadium to the financial district. Well, that was interesting because that took me past a few streets which I'd never really experienced. I saw something similar in the worst parts of Africa that I had experienced. There's obviously incredibly beautiful parts of Africa as well. And anyway, so yeah, it was a bit of an interesting experience, I have to say. And that has been in my mind for quite some time about what, unfortunately, San Francisco is. However, this time, I took an Uber from my very late plane that came in, and I nearly didn't get into my hotel because the plane was so late from where I was before, which was Indianapolis, in Indiana. And I took an Uber to... Actually, did I take an Uber there? Yeah, I did take an Uber. And so I went straight to the financial district this time. I guess that's how the other half live. Or the certain people. And so I went there. I'm nearly finished with my slides here. Okay. So so I went there and I went into this incredible building, and I'm going to show you some pictures after I've shown you some other pictures. If my laptop here doesn't freeze. Why is it freezing such a simple thing like inserting one image? That's just typical. Yeah, so come on, play nice. Oh, there we go. All right. Lovely. Okay, hopefully this will work. Seems to be crawling to a stop, but don't know why that is. Just basic images. Okay. Right, let's see if we can do this. Oh, obviously not. It's just crashed. Dear. In the meantime, whilst that's loading up again, hopefully it hasn't lost it. Oh dear. Seriously? No, it's good. It got it there. Okay, all right, here we go. All right, so aim 3. Hello, Sohamsuke. We will talk about the aims in a little while. But I think we are on target to work into aim 3. We've been transitioning out of aim 2 and into aim 3, and I think we're going to be fully into aim 3. So I have to thank one Katie Pepper for suggesting that I could hook up with Jason Cocker. I think that's how, or Kocher. I should have probably checked how to say his name. Sorry, Jason. And we had an absolute blast talking shop about cavitation and the whole field. And the reason I went there was to see his lab, which is a prototyping facility where he takes people's ideas and makes them into products. So I guess he's a product realization facility. It's him, another, and his beloved was there, and they take ideas and mature them into products. And he has a lot of additive machinery and CNCs and laser cutters, and it's a really large amount of equipment there. But in recent years, on his YouTube channel, which you can see down here, youtube.com/@i2c_Jason, he had been showing a cavitation system that he is constructing himself, and it has a microscope looking directly into where the cavitation bubble is aimed to be. And so he's been doing some quite nice videos on YouTube with that. And actually, one of the things he showed me, which I found was quite inspirational, was this stem kit down here. He has a couple of stem kits if you go to his shop. And this one has a little ball bearing, and it fires a inductive kick and throws the ball bearing around this 3D printed race. And the stem kit comes with a nice manual in a nice box and all the bits you need to set this up and program the little bit of a microcontroller here to trigger this to go round. And so people get to learn some basic electronics and some electromagnetics in that nice little kit. And he has a lot of 3D printers in there to make the components for this. So I found that very, very interesting. The main reason I went there, of course, was to meet him and to see if there's any way that the MFMP and myself could help him, and to pick up this sample. Now, what is this sample? You can see it in there, one of the lovely Aqua engineering bags. This symbol here. Now, it says aquaco2.com, and I thought that was odd. Like, why wouldn't you call it Aquaco or just aqua.com? I guess you wouldn't get that domain, but it could be aquaco2, and I should have probably asked about that as well before I started talking about it. It could be aquaco2.com. But what was interesting about this is he, in his early testing, he turned it on, and what he saw was some pitting in the focal point of the hemisphere here, which you can see. So my plan for this is to do macro photography of this and do a map SEM and do some analysis with EDS and then put it into the Patricia 2001 SEM EDS viewer and do some characterization on it in there and share it publicly. And so I hope we will maybe quite likely see some of our usual suspects in there. And maybe not, but we'll find out. But it's looking a little bit dark in there, rather than this lovely anodized aluminum here. And I'm going to have to I'd probably do the macro photography on this without damaging it. And I could probably even do some SEM work without taking it apart, but because of the deep pit here that we have, this deep bowl, I'm going to have to cut this so that we can get close to that to actually do proper analysis and mapping. Yes, as Corky Goss is saying, telltale pitting. And anyway, this is going to give a baseline for his reactors, and because it's aluminum, then it will probably have the things that we normally expect in these systems, or maybe not, but we will find out. So, so that was that first part of the journey, and it was, like I say, a real pleasure. And I want to thank again Katie Pepper for helping set that up, and Jason Kocher and his wife for accepting me into their facility that day. And go out and check out their site. It's rather nice. You can see some of the things they've worked on, as well as these stem kits. And then I went down to another guy who I met actually this time first in 2019 at the Global BAM conference in Holland, in Netherlands. And he is the guy that has loaned the BN 2000 Yule Brown gas generator, Brown's gas generator, that he personally bought off Yule Brown. And so an IEEE engineer has done some work in the past on taking that apart and looking to remaster from scratch with the same functionality, the control system of that. And hopefully we're going to get some money this year to be able to get a suitable power supply to drive that and to rebuild it and recondition it and then do some tests after that. So there's quite a few things that need to happen before that. But that person is called Brian Strom. And here he is. This is his little workshop here. And he actually is one of the world's experts in homopolar generators. Homopolar generators. And he has a patent which actually is now expired, but he's got some updates in terms of the technology. And he is looking for support and is currently setting up an organization to do that. And I don't want to really say, because I probably shouldn't, but I'll go as far as to say that a relatively famous and prominent NASA engineer who talks a lot about magnetism may be a part of the board, and that will be very good. And this particular motor may start to self-accelerate, is his understanding what it will do based on his previous work. And so that's very exciting if it does. He's also working with a guy who actually has an equivalent patent to, I think it's the Yuasa or something, Yasuo, Japanese people. They bought this patent off this, I think, an American patent holder. I don't know. I'm being very vague with the facts here. But essentially, there was a prior American guy who's still alive, and he's working with Brian Strom because effectively the patent is a complete rip-off. And it is, according to Brian, actually used this patent, which he claims is a rip-off of this other guy's patent. It's actually used in the Rolls-Royce fast electric plane motor. In fact, it was originally designed and demonstrated as a plane engine. And I'll share the patent and the video in the blog after the call. And also, it's used in all the hypercars, the really, really fast ones. So I think they've been using ones with 500 horsepower per wheel motor, and I think they've now got ones, he said, 1,000 horsepower per wheel motor. And so he's trying to help that guy get some justice. And I had this conversation with him, like, what is it realistic to achieve? I mean, is it a Pyrrhic victory if you show that the patent should never have been issued? Will it really make a difference to those people that have used that patent and extended it into technologies? I don't know, but I do think that the patent, the original patent inventor, if he genuinely has had his patent copied, I think there should at least be some credit. What I try to do in my work is to credit the earliest person I can that I find, and that's not always true that I managed to find the earliest person initially, but I try to credit the earliest person that came up with an idea, dead or alive, for a particular idea. And I wish that he finds solace before his passing, because he's not a very young man. And actually, on Brian's property, which is in Indiana, and nearby, he actually lives near the large forestry reserve there. And it's quite a sad story, because I think in the late 1800s, there was this whole village there called Hindustan. I think the actual village is kind of technically still on the map, called Hindustan, and they were, I think, of Indian or maybe even gypsy or travelers origin. Anyway, they had their own little subculture there, but at some point in the late 1880s or some 1800s, late 1800s, the whole village was burned down. I'm sure if you looked at your favorite AI of choice, you would find that the story about Hindustan in Indiana. I could have done that, but something for you to do for homework. Anyway, he was telling me that all around the area, there were these two springs, and all of the houses for the village were sort of centered around these springs, all burnt down. And he walked around some of this area and he showed me where this tree had fallen over. And under that tree, there was a spoon sticking out here. And this was the spoon. Actually, it turns out it was copper and it was very corroded, and it broke in my hand here. You can see it on the right-hand side. And given its coloration, I didn't think it was just pure copper. So I looked on the back and it says it's extra plate coin silver. So obviously this is silver plated spoon here in this. Loser says 272727. You are describing what has been going on all over the world, 1800 to 1900. Yeah, quite likely. Quite likely. It's sad nonetheless. But I do think that if possible, if we can find a way so that everyone's needs are satisfied and they are comfortable, they won't get a temptation to blame other parties for their suffering and otherwise, lack of, how should we put this, success in the world, or ready wealth or food or whatever. Thank you, Avalon Connections, for that £10. It's much appreciated. When people's needs are completely fulfilled, be that the kids and themselves have got enough food in their mouths, they're not thirsty, their accommodation is good, they've got nice, interesting things to do with their life, and they're not struggling to exist, then there isn't this temptation to try and find someone else to blame for the situation you're in. And part of that kind of idea is what motivates me to try and find solutions. I started out trying to find a solution to my problem, which was I believed in global warming. And as a ardent believer in global warming or climate change or whatever it is, global boiling or whatever it is today, although the IPCC, and we'll get on to that, the IPCC have kind of like done a mea culpa and said, yeah, well, probably got everything wrong for the last 20, 30, 40 years or something. Despite that, I wanted more children. So that was a need that I had, but I didn't feel comfortable doing it without actually solving the problem or trying to solve the problem or doing the best job I could. Anyway, that said, I left Indiana and Brian and his lovely wife's company. But before I go there, I just want to say that he showed me this device in the background here, which he runs off a transformer and a variac. And he's got a bridge in there, so it powers a DC current. And he has these two rails, which are energized. And he calls it a reactionless movement device. He actually demonstrated it at some conferences. And in many respects, this is similar to the device that is in Jason's kit here, this STEM kit. So I suggested to Brian, maybe I could hook you up with Jason, and you could make this device into a STEM kit. And if it really is a reactionless propulsion system, and it's based off a very, very old article in a old book that he had found, and I think it would be very good. It's totally in line with what Jason has done here, but it's less of an inductive kick and more of potentially a very interesting effect. So yeah, I think it would be good. And so I'm starting to get a picture of why I was on this journey, the real reason why I was on this journey, meeting these people. On the way from Jason to Brian, I tried to meet up with another person to get another sample of the event that was offered to me. For whatever reason, that didn't happen, but maybe that will in the future. We shall see, but I'm not keen on having them sent to me. Okay, so I arrived after very little sleep, to be honest, at Salesforce Tower. Salesforce Tower. And that is my mugshot there in front of Salesforce Tower. I bought a new shirt, and of course the new shirt was the 4 structure, the kind of like flower of life, but made of 4 sub non-radiating boundaries. So I thought that would be a little bit fun. So I wore actually a new shirt, which was interesting. And I had no idea about where I was actually going. And it was this building. So I'll just let this play because it was pretty crazy. This was the view from the building. So there we go. That is the view from the building. I think I even have a video of this. That is looking up San Francisco main view from the 59th. There we go. It was a 59th floor. I think there's 62, 63. I don't know what's above there. But from what I could see, it was the tallest building. And whilst I was there, I got some wonderful kombucha. Treated like a king. I was allowed to sit down for this 20-minute meeting. Yes, 20-minute meeting. And whilst I'm sipping on my kombucha for about 15 minutes, I listened, honestly, with abject horror. I wasn't trying to listen. It's just, that's all I could hear because it was basically silent. And I was looking out of this window. So, you know, and there were this group of people. I didn't even see them. I didn't clock them. I just heard them. And they were talking about opportunities in climate change and environmental protection. And the bit that was horrifying me was their discussion around trying to make technologies to control the weather, to mediate CO2, to you know, extract CO2 from the environment, but in some sort of massive scale, like planetary level scale. And it was couched in the kind of language which was slightly updated from my corporate years in the City of London. There's these new particular catchphrases that everyone seems to use when they're working in these circles at that kind of level. You know, I experienced it for the best part of a decade in the 2000s, early 2000s, and up to 2012. And it's basically the Silicon Valley lingo. So, you know, every phrase has certain catchphrases within it. And it was like, for them, it was a really serious conversation. For me, it was a horror story. It was a horror story. And I recognized myself. I had to be quite humble. I recognized myself, my former self, when I believed in these stories. But I got through that. And I don't understand how they can be having that conversation and have been interested that much in the field and aren't aware of what the IPCC have said recently. So that was weird. Anyway, I thought probably best I use the toilet. And, you know, you haven't been anywhere until you've actually used the toilet. So I asked the very, very accommodating chap behind the bar if I could use the toilet. And so he says, I will show you to the throne room. I said, the throne room? Yes. You will understand when you go there. I thought, all right, I've got to do this, right? So I will show you the throne room. And frankly, it's quite absurd. So I'm really taking you on the journey that I went through. This is me in the throne room. I said, now this is a toilet. Yes, it's basically one wall looking up San Francisco in glass. It's just so absurd. Okay, I'm not going to show you the toilet, but that was the actual room there. Anyway, so I went into the room and I didn't know who I'd meet, but I did know one person called Nick. The communication had been with Nick, and he looked like a great guy. In fact, they all looked like great people. But of course, I walked in and I said, listen, I've come here for a 20-minute interview. I don't even know what that means. I mean, I haven't had an interview for 35 years. And the last time I went for an since 35 years ago, I probably interviewed thousands of people. And I mean, for jobs and as a, in my role as a researcher in this field. And so I decided to give them a signed copy of Steps to the Discovery of Electronuclear Collapse, this one. Okay, so this is the spiral-bound, very nicely printed book, which is now in the hands of all of the Kickstarter people who pledged, and some that haven't, that have bought the book since, and except for one, who I can't seem to get an address out of, so he hasn't got it yet. Anyway, so this is in the hands, and I thought I'd give it to them, so I signed it in front of them, and I said, I don't know what a CV would be in this context, since largely what I've done in the past is irrelevant to the subject I've been studying the last 14 years and volunteering for. So I said, I think the best I can do is a character reference. And having said I was going to give them the signed book, I said the family handed over at their discretion, with the permission before he died, of Matsumoto of his life's work, and I said that's as much of as a character reference as I think I need to give you, and so we started off like that, and honestly, it was like a load of deer in the headlights. I think there was one person in the room that was about my age. I think almost all of the rest of them, maybe they're doing stuff with their face and their beauty treatments, because they were lovely looking people. Probably I had finished university when most of them hadn't even been born. So there's that. And but they were very polite. They laughed in the right places, sympathetically. I'm sure they enjoyed conversing about what I had to say after I was in there. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. There were two questions, essentially. One was something to do with, it was by the guy that was fairly contemporary to me. He said something about like, why? Well, if there are there aliens, and why, if there are aliens, why haven't we seen them? And I thought, I'm thinking in my head, is that anything to do with what I'm asking for? And then the other, what I was asking for, let's say that, what I was asking for was for $200,000 to do a verification test of Kladoff's aluminosilicates addition to a cavitator to increase the excess heat. And I was suggesting that I could go and work with Vlad Zhigilov in Kazakhstan, who's already got a 70 kilowatt class cavitator, a Russian design. It's not the same as Kladoff's. So that would be a first data point. Another guy down in Australia who's got a Griggs type device, and do some tests down there. If they don't come and show the effect, then I would commission engineers and work with Tony Gibboni to actually make variations of the Kladoff cavitator and run experiments. And the reason I was suggesting that is that it's kind of like a prerequisite where you don't have to ask a nuclear authority or anything permission to get radioactive isotopes. I've run into this problem many times. It's very difficult, particularly in Europe. And so I thought this would be a way forward if we can demonstrate that he was correct, as it was verified by third parties and has been seen in other systems and even in our own. But like with alumina silicates, and it produces a higher excess heat, and then what the products are, which are not documented in the Kladoff patent from 1992, then it leads to the second part of the proposal. But you have to go through step one to get to the second part. But the second part would be this, it was an extension or a small reprise of what I presented to the Bergamo conference in the second presentation in Bergamo earlier this year, was that if China really has, as they claim, and no one's disputed this, enough thorium based on their already working thorium modular reactor to power all of China's energy needs for 60,000 years. And I already know, where I lived in Kerala in southern India, that has enough thorium in the monazite there to power in all of India's energy needs for 300 to 500 years. And if you took all the thorium around the world and you take those modular reactors and you mass manufactured them, then essentially we could have unlimited, affordable, carbon-free energy for the entire world for, let's say, 20,000 years, which gives us a little window to work out how to do other things. And the problem with that is that whilst the thorium reactor, you know, if it gets too hot, it stops working. If it leaks, the salt comes out and it solidifies, so it doesn't go into the broader environment. Whilst it is inherently safe for those reasons, it wasn't deployed by America and its allies in the initial phases of nuclear energy because it doesn't produce plutonium. And if you don't have plutonium, you can't make any nuclear bombs, and you can't make the triggers for hydrogen bombs. And so no bombs, no play. And so it was decided not to go ahead with the thorium system. Of course, there are some other issues with thorium, but they've been solved. And so the real problem for me is if the whole world got 20,000 years worth of energy, basically meeting all of the requirements, there is one snag, because the thorium fission reaction still produces cesium-137, which replaces the salts in your body, strontium-90, which replaces the calcium in your bones, and krypton-85, which you can breathe in. These three elements and other beta isotopes that are produced by these systems, they can cause cancers and so on, and there's no officially admitted to solution for these products of fission reactions, and they're still there in the thorium system. And I'd said, like, basically my argument to the LENA community, without saying it, I'm saying it, but I'm not saying it, is like, what are we even here for when it's going to be a choice in the future for governments around the world to allow their populations to have basically limitless, cheap, affordable, carbon-free energy. It's going to be a choice for governments, and the choice is going to be dependent on this as a first stumbling block. Well, we can't do this. We can't, because there's going to be the radioactive waste, and what do we do with it? What do we do with it? Now, it's not plutonium with its 250,000 year plus half-life. It's not that kind of like length of time. It's this cesium-137 and strontium. What are we going to do with it? What are we going to... Well, if LENA can solve that, and we know that it can, because Kladoff showed cesium-137 remediation in 1998 to 2003. That was verified, but with strontium-90 in the hydrowave technology that was originally designed for just totally destroying biological and chemical weapons, but they'd run out of biological and chemical weapons to destroy. And so they tested in, I think, 2006 and 2009, Kladoff's observations, but they chose strontium-90, and again, they remediated strontium-90. And we know in 2011, 2012, that using cavitation system, which he wasn't sure was cavitation, but I demonstrated it was cavitation, it really is cavitation of Roish Amasa, that it can fix tritium, which is one of the other half-life, sizable half-lives that come out of fission reactions. And so you have this system which can clean up these things, and it will enable this energy. So if we solve those fission products, basically we've solved energy for longer than twice modern man's existence, according to the mainstream records, including Göbekli Tepe, right? And I'm pretty sure we can find another solution if we have 20,000 years to play with. I'm pretty sure. And then it comes down to it just being a choice by governments around the world to deny affordable energy for their citizens. They will have to choose to restrict deliberately, probably for commercial or maybe ethical reasons. I don't know what the reason would be, but it would be a choice. It would be a choice. Okay, so that would be the first point. Then enabling unlimited energy for the world. The second point would be to functionalize a Russian patent that has been to a degree functionalized by a Ukrainian guy, which essentially is the hydrowave technology, but you chuck in a bit of biomass from soil with the bacteria that is appropriate for the field in which you wish to fertilize. And about more than 50% of the world's, just over 50% of the world's nitrogen is actually fixed by bacteria in the ground. But it's supplemented by potassium nitrate. And the problem with potassium nitrate is twofold. I talked about this on my interview on the Matt Bell podcast. Is firstly, potassium 40, the increased use of potassium in potassium nitrate and putting that into the soil increases the amount of potassium that's both in the food and in the soil. This increases exposure to gamma rays from potassium and increases cancer rates. And this is one problem with the use of potassium. The second one is that potassium in high concentrations in the soil is uptaken by the plants, displacing magnesium proportion in the plants, which means even if you're a vegan, even if you are a vegan and you are eating 50% of your calories or more from seeds and, soya, okay, you're going to get an oversaturation of potassium if there has been a lot of potassium nitrate used in the fertilization of the seeds that you're eating. And that causes health problems. Absence of magnesium in your diet causes health problems. And so this process, which is essentially using something like a hydrowave with normal soil from the ground on which you want to fertilize, it then, whatever it is, whether it's charge clusters that are bound into the oxygen in the water that you produce, or it's micronutrients synthesized in the cavitation process, which we know happens. We know it produces phosphorus. We know that it produces other elements absolutely critical for the formation of RNA, DNA, and so forth. Okay, so maybe it's adding those nutrients to the soil. And obviously, I didn't go into this detail. I just said it makes fertilizer, right? That's why. And so then you have a scenario where you just dilute this thing, the bacteria go absolutely nuts, and then you spray it on the field, and the bacteria is already the right bacteria for that particular soil, and you can do away with nitrates-based fertilizer. That's a massive win. And then you get onto the direct energy, thermal heat production from the cavitator. It might be that your remediation produces heat, but you're going to want to do more of that. And so there was a selection of things that knock on from that effect. And so the other question that I got was, what would you need to do all of these things? And I basically said, baby steps first. And essentially, I don't want to waste anyone's money. I don't want to, what's the point of that, right? It's either going to work or it isn't. So I'm pretty sure it will work. I'm pretty sure it will work. Aluminosilicates were fuel in the singularity in 1986 of Martin Fleischmann and Stanley Pons, when that probably ball lightning-like structure went into the concrete and vaporized it and produced non-settling dust particles in the air. And I'm pretty sure the aluminosilicates, because aluminium oxide and silicon dioxide in the exotic vacuum object slash microball lightning tests of Ken Shoulders in the 1980s and early 1990s, it bored through that material, and it can interact with this material. And we know that silicon fuses to iron, and that was observed in the experiment, rather the 11-week process that occurred in Coimbatore in 1996, I think it was, and it produced 3 tons of extra silicon per day from the fusion of carbon and oxygen, and it produced an extra 1 ton of iron per day each day for 11 weeks from the fusion of 2 silicons. We know silicon does that. We know aluminium does that. At 2 aluminiums, 27 make iron 54. So we know that it does that. Aluminosilicates are fuel for this process. So as I said, baby steps. Anyway, that was that. And to cut a long story short, I was not a good fit for them. That's okay. That's fine. I fully expected it. But then the really interesting thing happened. And so what happened after that is I visited some more areas of San Francisco. And this is just, it almost looks unreal to me. This is an area of San Francisco looking out to the Pacific here. And these are 2 old windmills. I don't know whether this is in the Gate Park or something. I don't know actually. But it's pretty spectacular. Pretty spectacular. And shortly afterwards, this. And so it is a beautiful, beautiful place. And I can understand why people do want to live there. And here you can see the Golden Gate Bridge here, and in the distance there is the Salesforce Tower, which I actually realized at this point really was the tallest building in San Francisco. And I was somewhere up here in this corner, and the toilet was somewhere over here, just below the top. And I met this guy. I'm not going to say what his name is right now because I don't know whether he'd be comfortable with me saying his name, but I am showing his picture, so there's that. And we were going to a spring here to collect spring water, which was very delicious. And we got to talk about how we can take this field forward. And as I have said in my opener brief to this presentation, the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project was set up to, firstly, show the world there is a new practical primary energy source we call the new fire. And we did that effectively on our second attempt of looking at the work of Francesco Celani, which we replicated. And we found that our replication ultimately was very close to his actual observation rather than what was claimed initially, because there were some errors in the input energy calculation that they were doing in the National Instruments system. Ours was correctly showing the energy, and ultimately we ended up by basically matching the energy output in later tests that were done in Switzerland by my colleagues. And so there's that. And then we saw some interesting effects in the kind of system that was inspired part by Rossi, but also part by our visit in 2015 to Piantelli, Francesco Piantelli, on the nickel hydrogen system, and the work of Dr. Alexander Parkhomov. So we saw interesting phenomena there. So we saw interesting phenomena as well as excess heat from the work of Francesco Celani. And of course, ultimately, Francesco Celani's replication by a third party helped convince the European Union to fund European Union research into the field. That helped to support people. And I wrote a document that was presented behind walls at Congress. And I think that helped the DARPA fund US researchers. It turns out that the Google 10 million was wasted because they never asked Alan Goldwater, myself, or anyone in the MFMP or Dr. Parkhomov about what they had learned in their work. They just went ahead and made all the mistakes that were easily identifiable before they even started. So they chucked a load of money away there. But I think on a rough, the Russians started reinvigorating, the Japanese, the Indian research. I think we're probably looking at somewhere around about 220 million has been put into the field or stimulated, in part because we took the trouble to replicate some other person's work. And that is a big thank you to the community out there that helped support all of that work. And one of those followers has been doing a lot of work on replicating the George Eagley so-called energy amplifier. And I'm going to give you a lot of material about that next week. So look out for that. And that may become a third rung of what I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. Okay, so the second aim of the project was basically, once shown, was to help develop people's understanding of what the new fire is. And I don't know if you recall, the original logo that I did for the new fire was a triangle with a flame in it, and basically the flame doesn't need any oxygen. So it burns without any oxygen and presumably without any kind of traditional smoke. And so that was the idea of that, and I updated that in my second Bergamo presentation, which will be edited for those that are not able to see behind the paywall, and you'll see the full cut of that in probably this coming week, if not the week next, week after. And so I believe that we are at the point where too much evidence from both classified research that's been made unclassified and hidden in plain sight research, and research that's happened in related areas but not attributed to, such that we can fairly conclusively say that it is a superconducting, coherent microball lightning to ball lightning based process. It is a fractal magneto-hydrodynamic structure that does this. It's self-similar, and it produces a fractal toroidal moment. This allows it to interact with matter in very different ways and interact with itself in ways that are not normally electromagnetic in the detectable sense, and that it can interact with relic neutrinos and cause the decay and complete collapse of matter and rebirth of matter. In Matsumoto's terms, electronuclear collapse and electronuclear regeneration. And so I think that's pretty much what it is. I think I've done a lot, as much as I could possibly do over the last near 8 years to spell this out about how this process works. And I think probably at some point I need to codify that in a document which really allows more people to see it written down, let's say. However, I think at this stage we need to, and we've been transitioning into aim 3. Aim 3 was to help promote the development and uptake of the new fire in all its various guises. I've been suggesting that there are a lot of patents out there that are best in class for this technology that have expired, and to try and make a minimum viable product, and to then, once the minimum viable product is out there and released, then those people involved and anyone else in the world can go ahead and make technology from that. And of course, that might have been my sticking point with these guys in Salesforce Tower, because that's essentially what I said to them. I said, like, what are you going to do? Like, Cladov is like the best version of this technology that's out there, and the patent's expired. It's like, you can't get around that, and this is a problem. So we need to enable this if we're serious about creating and using the flux capacitor. And it was just funny. Their competition was called the flux capacitor, and this superconducting fractal toroidal moment structure produces a capacitor that stores magnetic flux. It is literally the flux capacitor. and the magnetic flux intensity at its phase singularity, at the point of focus of the magnetic field, is what causes the magnetic color disconfinement of baryons, in my view, and creates literally prima materia, a coherent quark gluon plasma, which is self-similar and itself a self-similar magnetohydrodynamic structure, which is also superfluid and superconducting. And this is why, in my view, it persists for a number of days. And I've said for many years that this thing is conscious. And ultimately, in 2023, June the 15th, I was sent a paper by one of you out there. Thank you to whoever that was. I can't remember immediately. And I think it's on my presentations who that was. That at Sydney Technical University, they showed that extended the work done in the 1960s, where they showed magnetic loops in each side of the brain and between the left and the right side of the brain. They showed that during cognitive tasks in a conscious state, people given tasks to do using functional magnetic resonance imaging, when you have oxygenated blood, it is diamagnetic, and when you have deoxygenated blood, it's paramagnetic. Using this functional magnetic resonance imaging, they saw magnetic vortices and antivortices with their respective phase singularities moving across the cortex, and that will inevitably produce a toroidal moment type structure. And that is what I'm arguing is the manifestation of your DNA in a transceiver that's able to read and write to the Akashic record. So we are entities that can read to write to the Akashic record, and I've specifically said that plasma is also these fractal toroidal electrodynamic structures, and that they therefore will be able to read and write to the Akashic record and interact through it. And this will be the basis for telekinesis, telepathy, spoon bending, the Hutchison effect, things attributed to the sensitivity of John Hutchison. And it's nice to see that I think, is it David Grush had clocked on to this, and in a comment that I shared earlier today that was put out by the Australian journalist who interviewed me before he published his book way back when, in 2020, 21, I can't even remember now. What did I say? What it was? What did I say? Help me out here. Oh dear. Yeah. So basically, what is it? I said on X, didn't I? Yeah, you're getting there. Okay. Yeah, Ross Coulthart said that in his introduction to the Steven Spielberg Disclosure Day video, or rather in some question and answer session about that there are those out there that think that plasmoids are actually conscious, and I'm definitely one of them. I've been saying it for years, and I believe that I've done the best hash at explaining the exact mechanism by which they are conscious, and I believe they're the same consciousness that we have. And I think that is why when Ken Shoulders say static electricity comes out of your fingers, and I've described this for many years, that when you are learning to spoon bend, these unseen things, the unseen actors that can come out of your body, they are, and I've said this for many years, they're quantumly entangled or consciously entangled, let's say that like that, consciously entangled with your own consciousness, and they go into the metal, and then you can command them to a certain degree to act on that metal. So that is what I'm saying is going on in the spoon bending process, the Ninel Kulagina, and so on. So with that in mind, I think it's probably some time for an interlude of something that I know you've probably all missed, and it's my fault, and I'm sorry, but I think we're going to do a little bit crazy. I think we're going to have a little bit crazy right now. I have mentioned this before. I've certainly mentioned it to people in private, but I've definitely mentioned it in public before. But I just want to reiterate this point, because I think we're at the time where it's going to be something that people can start to accept. And so I want to ask people what they think they are seeing on the screen now. What are they seeing on the screen now? What do you think you're seeing? Anyone guess? It's not but Corky Goss, that's not a bad guess. It does look a little bit similar. Sideways Hindu character. Yeah, no. It does have a little omega up there, doesn't it? Yeah. Yin Yang, no. Covered wagon. Interesting. That's not what I expected. Oh, very good. Power and Prep says all Arabic. Yes. Come on, you've all got AI. You've all got a smartphone now. Come on. What are you seeing? What are you seeing? Have you seen the most la la la? Okay. Someone says, have you seen the most recent UAP videos from America yesterday? No, but I expect there are a bunch of orbs flying around. Just like my dad showed me in 1979, which he knew about. Okay, so we need to use our brains. Yes, absolutely. Right. So what you are looking at there is the Arabic for jinn. For jinn. What is the Arabic? Very good. Very good. MigV3404 says smokeless fire. Very good. So I have said that we are controlling the jinn. And according to the pre-Islamic Arabian mythology, these are supernatural beings that the word jinn refers to. And they are believed to be made of smokeless fire. And they are capable of free will. They are capable of free will. And they can act as either benevolent or malevolent entities. And this is all according to Wikipedia. The singular form is jinni in Arabic. And that is where the English word genie is derived from. The Arabic root JNN, means to hide or to conceal, reflecting the invisible nature of these beings. I will remind people that many, many years ago, I referred to the Dogon people. These are the priests, former priests of the kind of pre-pharaonic Egypt, and their cosmology, as interpreted by Laird Scranton, who I actually have contact with, and I am going to engage with him on the stones of the wonderful people up in Scotland that no one can understand, but I will reach that at a time where I will talk about that material. And they talk about Egyptian hieroglyphs as scientific symbols, describing the structure and formation of matter. And I think I'm writing saying that Laird Scranton found that some of these symbols that are given different interpretation by people studying Egypt interpretation of these hieroglyphs, they are talking about massless waves all the way to atoms, and also how humans have an ability to control matter with their minds. Mind over matter. And of course, this reminds me of a conversation I had with George Hathaway in his car in Toronto a number of years back, where he was utterly convinced that John Hutchison was actually part of the process. Now, I would agree, as an electrosensitive person and someone who feels really affected by thunderstorms and electric fields, that if you could feel the buildup of these things, these charge clusters, these microball lightning, if you could also get them to do your bidding like Uri Geller did and like other people have done over the ages, then you could be considered maybe part of the machine. So is he right or wrong in that? I don't know. But like, if you could create a technological system that could also communicate in the same way using toroidal moments with these structures, then you could also get them to do your bidding. These ghost-like structures, these structures that hide and they conceal themselves, these are essentially, according to Alexander Shishkin, the magic, all of the magic is effectively static electricity. And in the purest form, in my view, as I gave in my Tesla Tech presentation last year, and I hope everyone will be able to come to Tesla Tech this year, which is being held in early August and down in Albuquerque in New Mexico. I will be speaking there. It is, these structures effectively are neutral with respect to ordinary matter, because whilst they are like large electrons, just like 2.45G Wi-Fi can go through a wall easier than 5G Wi-Fi, these things can pass through ordinary matter as if they are neutral, because they are essentially have a different wavelength, and there is no resonant interaction between their kind of electron and the electrons in the matter through which they pass. And it's only the charge which is the kind of force that we feel that keeps everything in its place, and so they can pass through. And this is what ball lightning obviously does. It can pass through matter without interacting with it. It's famously for passing through glass sometimes without interacting with it. And so I believe that quite possibly we have effectively rediscovered the genie, and that the genie can grant us wishes. And for me, what would be my 3 wishes? Unlimited clean energy for humanity, unlimited and biocompatible food for the planet and its creatures and beyond, and possibly propulsion. They would be my 3 wishes. They would be my 3 wishes. So, to that end, what have I been inspired to do by this trip? Well, I think you can see a picture here. Now, the MFMP was set up to try and create demonstrator experiments. And the thinking was that that would be, let's say, the Chilani wire experiment. That would be great. And we did the work to make that happen and verify that it worked. But it was really complicated. It's just not simple at all. And then it was the dog bone, which became the glow stick experiments. Again, really complicated. Really complicated. So what am I proposing for this third goal of the project, this third aim, which was help promote the development of the uptake of the new fire in all its various guises? Well, on the one hand, there is taking out of patent technologies, making minimum viable products for them, showing them what they actually can do, and then going to the races with producing technological solutions in a range of fields. That is actually happening right now with the Desmotron tube. There is a huge amount of material I have to share with you. It's absolutely amazing. It is amazing. It looks like it's totally fundamentally different from the way that normal Röntgen rays, X-rays are formed. These things do not, as we found in California earlier in the year, myself, Griffin Brock, Paul Harris, and Alan Goldwater, we found that if you put a piece of metal in front, the high energy stuff gets attenuated and the low energy comes through, but just at a lower intensity. Okay, this is not like normal X-rays. You should have a hardening of the photons coming through. And I believe it is this, and I've said this before. The charge clusters that are being produced, and I'll talk about, it looks like they are being produced in exactly the way that I hypothesized they were. They come, and some of them break up. Now, there are some photons from bremsstrahlung that are coming through, and they get cut. So they are the ones that are cut by your material in between. But if you've got a charge cluster and it's coming and it hits this metal, some of it gets broken up there and probably statically charges the metal. And we're going to do a whole series of tests to test that. Then some of them break up on the exit from the material, and then they produce this same spectrum of photons that are coming out. So this both shows that they are neutral, they're charged clusters, and they're fundamentally different from normal X-rays. Then within the tube itself, you will see that with a pinhole camera, we are seeing that it would appear that the structures are not being formed predominantly on the electrode itself. They're being formed in the standing wave, probably antinodes maybe, where you are getting this like compression and rarefaction, such that these clusters can then cluster and bigger and become these kind of like non-resonant electron-like objects that at some point are then just accelerated out of the tube and they go in a direction. And Griffin has verified that if you put a Helmholtz coil around the tube, you can focus that down to under a centimeter beam, which means the structures are not photons. They're not photons. If you can focus that thing, then they're not photons. They must be something that can electrodynamically focus. And I believe that what's happening there, and we're going to see this on more pinhole camera tests. We're going to see that it is the clusters are tightening their formation, but because they have a magnetic vector, your Helmholtz coil will produce a vector through the azimuth, and this will align them in a small location, so more of them come out in a direct beam. This is absolutely amazing. Absolutely fundamentally different from X-rays. Fundamentally different from X-rays, and probably the damaging nature of them will be, or what they can damage and what they can't damage is different. But for me, the exciting thing is, if these are the same structures, which it looks like they are, that caused rats in tests in exploding foil, exposed rats in Russia, to be resistant to or to cause cancer to be taken out of their bodies very, very quickly. And I've likened this to the fishermen in Kerala standing on that radioactive sand and constantly having their white blood cells stimulated in their femurs, leading to no higher cancer rates despite having the highest background dose of radiation anywhere on Earth. I think that we really do have what I proposed many years ago, a practical technology for stimulation of white blood cells in femurs. This means we have a non-chemical means of treating many diseases, both short-term diseases and long-term diseases, by using the human's own capability and just amping it up. Of course, not good for bone cancer, not good for blood cancer. But if you've got a cancer in the throat or the lung, or you've got a cancer in the brain, combined possibly with targeted therapy of another type. But it could be even appropriate to deal with conditions like the common cold. Yes, you might have some of the virus or whatever in the blood, in the femur or whatever, but I think this could literally be a medical treatment technology. But the jury's out. We need to do a hell of a lot of work. But that's just one application. There's condition monitoring, X-raying things in different ways to what we can currently do now. And one of the most amazing things about it is a normal X-ray tube used for mammograms and whatever, 60 to 70, let's say, keV photons. It needs a cable about this big with a massive power supply. And already at Elia Labs, they've been able to produce and drive the tubes and produce shadowgraphs off a car battery, or even you can run it off a small 6-volt battery like you have in a motorbike. So it's really, really awesome. It's totally awesome. And this is an example of taking a formerly expired, discarded technology and making it a minimum viable product. So you won't be able to buy the two things together because we don't want people to fry things, but the idea fry themselves. But you'll be able to buy the tube and make your own power supply. You can even make your own tubes, right? That, you know, as long as you're not commercially doing it, because there is a patent pending for that kind of implementation by Griffin Brock. But you'll be able to buy it. It's not hidden technology. And you'll be able to make your own power supply or get a power supply and put them two together and start doing investigations with this with a minimum viable product. It's already a viable product for imaging. Of course, it's frightening the way it fills up a Advocam camera and makes it go white immediately. Of course, that is quite frightening. And so there's a lot of work to do, and that is being done. I have to give a shout out to David Boutlier. You're going to see some incredible evidence from David Boutlier over in Canada. David, if you remember, he did some really nice work, key work in the Vega experiments, in understanding those, the coherent matter traveling waves and so on. Very, very important. He extended and verified the work of Henk Uren on his Vega experiments in Holland. And so that he's done some incredible work with his homemade desmatron tubes, and he's used other elements like beryllium, which is the lightest element that was used by Tesla. That has a very interesting behavior to it. It would appear it might be more efficient to use beryllium than aluminium. That is to say, if this is true, then it might be the same process to a degree on the initiation phase as is going on according to Alexander Shishkin, where the lighter the element is, the more likely you are to smash out these electron clusters, these energy solitons from the nuclei of the atom, or from the overall structure of the atom itself. Anyway, so much more work to go on there, but it's super, super exciting. So this was kind of the case that I'm trying to make to these people, that we've proven one technology, get it to minimum viable product, and then off to the races. If we functionalize the Kladoff cavitator, it opens up immense opportunities for a range of technologies that already have a whole bunch of proof already out there that's been identified. So that's at the big end of scale of things. But we can't get these kits of the Celani generator and the glow stick practically into the hands of many, many people to change the mindset that everyone's been indoctrinated in since Paragon Press probably took over the drafting of textbooks and the peer-reviewed system in the 50s and 60s. You know, as I was reminded when I went to Aarhus during that whole operation, if you want to know how impossible this is, you need to read a textbook. Yes, that was literally what I was told to do, to stop me thinking that this was possible. So I want to do a complete end run around the educational system and make it a thing for the next generation. The next generation will know that this is possible if we can get this right. They will know that it's possible. And how do I propose to do that? I propose to do that by producing STEM kits. STEM kits. So, to achieve goal 3, principally, we would produce a STEM kit for the Ultra experiment. Very well described, and Matsumoto's favorite experiment, which is the exploding wire experiment. And given the fact that, George, I really did have that conversation with you in Azizi and tell you how to put this thing together with your understanding and my understanding, the Eagerly Energy Amplifier. And this is the subject of what Mats has been doing in Sweden with some colleagues, building a whole system around the open data acquisition tool that was built by Artifact. Thank you, Artifact. Is to do the energy amplifier. But Ultra obviously is about cavitation. I have argued that cavitation is the same process going on in all of these other LENR systems. it produces this magnetohydrodynamic fractal structure that has a toroidal moment and can interact with matter, causing matter to collapse. And that is manifested in exquisite detail. Exquisite detail. We'll have a look at it in a minute in the sample from Binjuan Huang that I analyzed in early 2024, verifying what I proposed in 2022 about the fractal toroidal moment producing an apple shape in which the reactions occur. Matsumoto's favorite experiment is electronuclear collapse using a spark discharge in water. It combines a wide array of other similar features of experiments in the field. This one we would have to be a little bit more cautious, and I'm imagining sort of like a little tube with a polycarbonate thing, and you put your lead wire in or your other elemental wire. You can see from the Matsumoto logbooks that his favorite experiment was with cadmium for obvious reasons of its interaction with neutron-like material, and of course these things are like neutron-like structures, and but also things like he used gold, and of course not everyone's going to do gold, but iron. Iron was the only one to show to capture these toroidal clusters, and they got bound to it, and after 2 days they decayed, leaving synthesized elements in their place. And it would be a system where you just plug it into the mains and everything's in there, and it's just a one-shot thing. You press it, it does the 800 milliseconds thing. You can see it through the window, and it's like interlock. When it's open, there's no power to the wire. When you press it, it has to be fully closed, and so on. So I want to make STEM kits that are completely brainless to use. They can be done by school kids, and they are absolutely safe. And I want the strapline for these two kits to be, what elements can you make? I'll say that again. The strapline for these two kits will be, what elements can you make? And then, because I'm fed up with the question I always get asked when I talk about transmutation. And yes, you can make it. Use a piece of metal, any metal, doesn't matter. Pick your metal, choose a metal, any metal, pin. Electrical discharge into the metal. All right? Electrical discharge into the metal, disruptive dielectric barrier, electrical discharge into the metal, SV Adamenko, Proton 21 Labs, 20,000 experiments in a row, every single one produced every element in the periodic table. You can make all of the elements, all of them from electronuclear collapse and electronuclear regeneration. The idea is here to have cheap kits, everything's in the box, lovely description. And if you don't have the ability to go and look at an SEM, to look at an EDS, then what I've been doing over the last 6 weeks in building the Patricia 2001 free to use, and by the way, the actual JavaScript, the HTML and so on, when you zip it, it's less than 250K at the moment. It's less than 250K, and it's even deployable on a USB stick. It's even deployable on a USB stick. In fact, you could include a USB stick in the kits which showed the type of element they might, or the products they're likely or possibly going to see, right? But all they need is access to a tablet that is at least, I guess, from around about 2017, or a computer from probably at least as young as 2006. And they will be able to real-time look around these materials and investigate it. So they will be able to see with their smartphone or a cheap digital microscope, or maybe their school or their university has an actual optical microscope, or maybe they do have an SEM. They will be able to look, and they will be able to see the exact yin-yang cones with a pit and pits with a cone with these blobs of material in them that they will see in the SEMs. So we'll do a very nice map, color, and the SEM. And I want to be able to have functionality where on some of the spots of interest, I'll actually have embedded on that thing and another series of overlays where they can see the elemental makeup in situ on the sample. Okay? And so I want them to also, if they make a large map of their particular experiment, they might be able to upload it to a library so other people can do metrics on their particular sample. Ideally, they would also upload it with a series of analysis from the microscope they're using. And I've already built tools where you can literally drag the SEM output onto it, and it immediately produces a file that's directly compatible with all of the calibration and everything for the viewer. Additionally, another tool that you can drag in a color macro photography, it already tiles it up and matches it if it's the same area, and it's matched in just a pixel, but at a scale to the SEM. And other tools I would like to build to make this absolutely frictionless, totally frictionless, to do an end run around the entire indoctrination system. Okay, so I just want to show you what I mean. The kind of thing, if you haven't seen it already, that they will be able to freely access and look at what they might see if they had access to an SEM, but they can see the signatures even with a smartphone, zooming into the experiments they've done with these STEM kits. So we will go to the Patricia 2001 viewer. Okay, so here we are, and I will go to, if those that haven't seen it, the Brock electrode is now on there, so you can zoom right into the Brock electrode here. And this is actually online right now. I'm going to look at the local one now because it's slightly faster for just showing you, because it's not having to download all the tiles. It's very, very minimal difference, actually. So you can see around the Brock electrode here, you can see where the monopole is, and one part of the monopole here. And I'll talk about this signature feature. You can actually see it. Look, here we go. I now have this new function in the when you're looking at complicated ones here. You can actually turn on marker auto open. It opens all of the types of markers. And if I zoom into a particular marker like this one up here, it will, if it's the only marker that's there, it should go to full view and show it. You just press the H to go back to full screen here. I'll have a look at this one here. Boom. Okay, click on that. There we go. So what am I looking at here? I'm looking at some iron structure with this little winged thing here and this cone coming out of it. Let me zoom into that. I'm looking at this cone going into this winged, like, two eyeglasses up here. All right. And this is, in my view, the logo that I have from the lion experiment. Okay. So that is that. Just a little teaser there for those that don't quite know what I'm talking about. You will at some point. Yeah, there's been some major feature updates to the tool. I'll show you one that I built today. So if they're doing cavitation of some types, not the kind of yin-yang that we'll see, they might get to see these kind of structures in their cavitation. This is the apple shape. And I've shown in various experiments, there's about 100 to 200, 70 to 100 nanometer, 70 to 100 nanometer area around here, that if that interacts with material, it just chews right through it. So I'm going to go here to the Matsumoto replication here, and we'll go up to these areas up here. And so you can see these kind of balls with a hole in it, with the carbon spitting out of the hole. Okay. And it leaves these splats where sometimes it hits there and it fragments. But I now have this wonderful magic wand tool, which I can use here to select an area. And then I have the ability to smooth it out and reduce the number of points that are in there. Okay. And do something like that. And then I can add that as a record into the system. And people can then share those records very easily. But I also have, I'm working on the categorization, the classifying tools in the tool set here. So if you go to the histogram, I'll just quit out of that. I've still got this mode on. Okay, all right. Yeah, drop that tool. If I go over here and I turn on the histogram tool, we can look for everything that's really black, which is these little functions here. Okay. And then what I can do is I can then hit the count particles and features system here, and I can then ask it to look for things that are a certain size, a certain number of total pixels. I'm going to pre-smooth it a little bit and up like this. I'm going to do an analysis here, and it's going to count. It's found how many it did find. 570. That's a bit much. Okay, so it's finding the small ones here. So if we now do the count here, it's only 380. So we'll just make it a little bit bigger, and you'll see the count goes down. I'm going to make this so it sits there the whole time, 158. Okay, and now what I can do, there's still too much, so I'm just going to dial that up a little bit here. Okay, so 45. That looks about right. We'll do an analyze on that. And now what I can do is I can hit on this map and I can say which ones have got the area, and it gives a gradient color overlay of the ones that are area. And we can actually get this to work in a particular region using the one select tool. So I can actually paint round a group of these things like so. Like so, like so, like so, like so. We're going to go around that one as well and around there. This is a really interesting selection here. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, that's our new selection. Again, we can change the selections on this. And then we can reanalyze, and it's only going to show the ones or focus on the ones that are in that area here. So if I redo this. So this is what I'm working on at the moment to really categorize these things. And this will feed into the classification tool, which will allow us to count the number of things in a particular shot. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off and we'll come out, and I'll just show you how this new tool is able to select objects. So we have this one select tool here, and it's done a pretty good job of that, actually. We just reduce the number of points there, and you can actually turn off the control point so you can see pretty clearly what you're looking at. And now we can add that as a new record, and it shows the area of that splat, and we can add that as a record here. I'm going to call this skid mark for those that know what I'm talking about. And I've got a bunch of them here. I've called this one a smear, and we can smear 2, smear there, and it can start producing metrics in a report over here. So we can do distribution charts, and it's showing our distribution charts of our metrics here. Very, very, very instantaneous. I'm going to delete that one, go full screen. I'm going to look at, say, one of these balls down here. Now, the balls are ridiculously complicated because they've got lots of light areas and dark areas. So I had to work hard. So I've really got a low resolution, poor quality scan with very complicated structure with the lead and the carbon all in this kind of structure here. So I'm going to use the one selection. I can actually do the seed point here, and then I can add another seed point. So I can grow this one, maybe smooth grow this one, and I can get something that's roughly equivalent. And I can do a right button click. Let's say I didn't want that. I can right button click and delete that particular point, and end up with something that's a little bit simpler to represent the structure. And then I can use these to train the machine learning AI trained classification system for it. Okay. And if I wanted to group two things together, I'll just delete that and we'll go and look at another area. Say, I don't know, down here. Let's find the one where it's got grouped together. These two here. But if I wanted to group this and say that was all one, maybe these are babies that have come out of this structure. Possibly. That's probably why this actually might be why they produce those two-way skid marks, the yin-yang that's inside them. One goes out one direction, one goes out the other direction, and you're seeing one that's partially blown up here. That may be actually the mechanism that happens. But anyway, we're going to do a one selection there, and we're going to do another one selection by holding down Command, and it automatically produces a bridge between these two. And here we got another bridge here, and then we can grow that out and smooth it a little bit to simplify it down, grow it again, and we can maybe change the tolerance. Okay, right. So I think you get the idea. It's very powerful and flexible, and so we can say that all of these are the same structure. And this is much quicker than doing a complicated polygon. You can imagine starting with all these points. Might take a very long time if it was just rough. And there we go. So that might be a new structure that we're using. Thank you very much, Folly. Here's some more coffee. Wonderful. I like the coffee. Okay. Thank you very much, Follow the Rabbit Hole. That's really nice of you. Okay, so yeah, so and on Patricia 2001, after which the application is named, you know, it's incredibly powerful using this tool to find and you know, there you go, boom, it's done it. Oh, we've got a little blob over here, and we'll just delete those with the right button click. Okay, la da da, because that's actually just a piece of wire that it picked up. We could have probably just used that, but anyway. And that's basically our job done. We can turn that off so we can just see the perimeter. We can smooth it out a little bit. And there we go. So we can now add that as a record, okay, of something. And of course, it works with pretty much anything else you want to click on. Let's try this one down here. I'll just delete that one. Okay, so we do a one select on there. There we go, it's done. It's hilarious. Oh dear. I wish I had software like this years ago. I did ask for it. I was prepared to design it. And I've just gone backwards when I shouldn't have done that. Okay. There we go. And if we weren't happy with that, we can come in and we say that's just to try to stuck to the fiber. So we'll get rid of that. Done. All right. And we've got our fiber defined there. Lovely. Lovely. Ta-da. All right. How about that? Will Griffin Brock become the Elon Musk of Len? I don't know. Okay. And like I say, this tool all fits in. I want to show. I want to show you one of the features you might not have seen in the tool here. We now have the ability to use a swipe feature. So if I just zoom into here and I go to color and I go back to SEM, we now have under. I don't need to do that actually. I don't know why I said that. Okay, we go to here and we'll start at the beginning. Okay, I'm going to go zoom in here and I'm going to press the enable overlay button here. And now we can smoothly blend between the SEM and the color microscopy. Color macro photography. Okay, and we can also do this. We can swipe, so we can go whoop 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 whoop. I love it. It's great. It's great. Look. Let's turn that off for a second. And we'll go to another area. Not there. I'm going to go here. And I go H. And I'm going to go, I don't know, let's have a look at this little area up here. So swipe, look at that. Whoa. Okay. So do you prefer me swiping right or do you prefer me swiping left? There we go. But it really gives you an understanding. So if I actually if I go down here, you can see what the you like me to swipe left, would you? Here we go. So you can see this is very bright because it's iron, okay, and it's probably zinc coated iron, maybe even. But these white areas on here, if I zoom in, they are calcium sulfate. They're basically gypsum. All over fragments, little fragments of gypsum. And if I go back to the other tool that I was showing you earlier, which is the marker auto open rather, not open, auto open rather, and I go over here, we just zoom into that, boink, we can see that this is an iron-rich crenulated sphere followed by slag. So this really does indicate that these ones might be produced in the slag wall process. And if I go here to enable overlay and I go swipe, you can see the difference between the two. It's not actually the best example of that because I didn't take a very good macro photography at that area. If I go out here and go down to this one, maybe you get a nice impression of this if I put the swipe. You see the difference between, these are called slag shots. So when they're producing slag wool and they melt in a carbon arc furnace, the slag, then it goes onto 4,000 RPM spinning rollers with a high-speed air jet or something. these blobs come off first, and then they drag what becomes basically like a glass wool fiber behind them. So if you were just looking at this under SEM, you wouldn't really understand what that is. But you look at it with the context of a macro photography and it becomes very obvious. If I also do this and I go here and I go up to here, you can see our little crystal here. And we can do the same here. We'll swipe on that. You can see it's very shiny. Okay, so I guess you get the idea. Is there a comparison tool? What type of comparison tool? There's lots of tools. Anyway, if there's something out there, so what I'm focusing on right now are tools that allow people to choose an area of the screen and categorize how many spheres are in there, or how many, skid marks are in there, like we were just looking at, or how many Oreos as compared to the what do you call it? The apples are in there. So and these tools will be useful for pathology as well, for people that are looking at stained cells, cancer cells and stuff. And I will get on to that, but of course my expertise has been in looking at not inorganic samples, but the tools that I'm building right now are very applicable to producing reports about the number of cancer cells you've got in a slither of lung tissue that's been stained. And I think it would be a very powerful tool for people working at pathology. Comparing of one of the images, Ethereum, if you have a particular thing that you want to see put into it, I want to not be the SEM manufacturers that I've been begging for these kind of things to be available readily for the last several years, or wanting them to do something like this. And simple. So if there's something that you think is really valuable in a particular field, let me know, and I can try and get that to you. Okay, so where are we now? DHX2. I want to go to Matsumoto. You've got this full screen button here, which means it's quite immersive. And I'm going to go up here again. And it's got our little blobs in here that we looked at earlier. So we have our 3 things that we've already done a measurement on, or rather, I put into the list. But we will get rid of all of those. And I'll turn the markers off. And I'm just going to do an area in here, I think. An area here. Let's try here. Okay. And we do a 1 select around here. Actually, I probably want to do this afterwards, but anyway. I do histogram, and we go for the black end of things. And just go here. And in theory, when I adjust this, it should kind of real time. How many counts we got? 146. It's a bit too much. Blah blah. And it's actually quite easy. If I do this, you can see how it's characterizing, and I can turn this what's called a region of interest here. So if I turn that on, it's only working within this region of interest. If I turn it off, it shows you calculations based outside. So let's say we've got a cancer growth in here, and we want to study the number of cancer cells in here. Those would be stained a different color. We can determine those, and then we can produce a table here, and we can export that table into our report here with all of the features here. And you could even give a proportion of like which number of cells have got this, that, and the other. But I don't want to get into any legal issues. So at the moment, I'm just doing this for fun and for practical use and in an open setting. Okay, so if I actually dial this up, it needs to be a different size. It's automatically recalculating the number of particles that fit the bill. By doing closed here, it's going to make these more watertight, and you can see where they are. And I'm going to put another 2 pixels on here, and it's showing 24. So it's really, really cleaning these up, and it's but I might want to extend that a bit, so I'll add a bit of dilation here. And when you get this right, it'll bleed one thing into another. So now this is definitely one splat, This is possibly one splat. That's definitely one splat. So now it's nearly grouped all of the splats correctly together. We're going to make the area bigger because these are fragments which we don't want to include. So if we dump this up a bit, it's going to discriminate a little bit more between the really large areas. Okay. So now it's got rid of all the other things, and we can see that the count is just 13. So there's 13 blobs in there, and so on. So what I want is to try and join these up. Now I could manually do it. Is a little bit of blur going to give me a bit of extra? No, those really are two separate, and then they're part of the same structure. Is it going to join them? Oh, I'm pushing it too hard now. Anyway, so you get the idea. I'm mostly able to join these splats up, even though they've got a break in the middle, many of them. Anyway, that's the region of interest. We can turn the region of interest off, and now it does the whole thing. So you can imagine you might have a system where it's very, very complicated. This is pretty darn complicated. But you might want to work in a region of interest, and then maybe, I don't know. Let's see if I zoom out, is it going to let me turn off the region of interest here? Is it going to let me zoom out? I don't know. There we go. Zoom out. Maybe it'll categorize more of them outside of the region of interest. There we go. Done. It's done all of them. There we go. So there we go. Anyway, I'm building this tool right at the moment. Okay. So just to reiterate the day here, I just got a message. It's a lovely message from the guy that hosted me very graciously in San Francisco. So thank you to that person. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to review what I have said today. We had 3 aims as a project. The first aim was to show the world there is a new practical primary energy source we call the new fire. We did that very quickly. We did it with a range of different technologies. We did it with directly heated wire, Chilani wire. We did it with powders, with the glow stick experiments, the dog bone experiments, the glow stick experiments. And we done it with cavitation with the Binter and Huang work. And we showed that the transmutations are there in both cavitation, simple cavitation experiments and simple verification of Matsumoto's work in his book, Steps to the Discovery of Electronuclear Collapse. And we have shared that data fully. Second aim was to show, once shown that we have a new practical primary energy source called the new fire, was to help develop people's understanding what the new fire is. I think we've done that to death. And at some point, people will catch up, and many people are, and that's great. And so the third point, which we've already been moving into, which is to help promote the development and uptake. So if there's a technology that could be developed and it's related to the new fire, let's help it be developed. And the uptake of the new fire, you need to help kids understand that this is real, because they haven't fully been indoctrinated yet, and that's what we want to make sure is made possible, so that they don't have the barriers that you and I had to face when considering these technologies for the first time. So we are fully on target for AIM 3, I believe. And the inspirational trip that I made to America, where I saw Jason Kocher, and his STEM kit, and the potential for Brian Strom's reactionless propulsion-based demonstrator to become a STEM kit. And to remember who we're doing this. We're doing this not just for the wealthy, we're doing this for the disaffected and the abused around the world, because basic potable water and affordable energy should be a reasonable thing for humans to expect in a society that has any capability to provide it. And I'm arguing that in the near future, it will be a choice to disallow a country's citizens to have affordable carbon-free energy. People will choose at some level of government to prevent their own citizens from having access to this. And I want to make it that kind of situation. I want to make it that kind of situation by removing the barrier for nuclear energy, and in the form of thorium nuclear energy, the radiation. Once you deal with the radiation, it's a safe system. But when you deal with the radioactive isotopes, it produces mostly the same nasty isotopes as uranium fission. And that is now not a question. It has to be a choice for the governments to prevent potable water, easy production of fertilizer, easy production of elements, and ubiquitous supply of carbon-free, affordable energy. No more wrecking landscapes, no more mining big hills, just the use of water and clay, essentially, and yielding energy out of the same process that naturally occurs in the earth all of the time. So we don't get situations like this. And so I had my little journey into Salesforce Tower, which was good fun. And thank you to the guys that made that possible. And probably the nicest toilet I've been in for a while, in terms of just ridiculousness, just totally, utterly ridiculous. Imagine you're sitting on the toilet and that's what you have to look at. It's like, anyway, and the beautiful scenery there in California, that you can understand why they live there. Thank you to this person that hosted me. I think we are talking literally and precisely about what the pre-Islamic Arabian mythology called the jinn. These were believed to be made of smokeless fire. This is the new fire, and it's the eternal fire. It's the same as the old fire. It's the fire that underpins anything, and at every level, they are essentially microball lightning and their various manifestations and intensities. They can act as either benevolent or malevolent entities. Yes, you can use them for ill. You can use them for ill. And I believe that that is done for manipulating consciousness. And I believe it was done in the early part of this millennia to manipulate and control humanity. And I have named the viewer, which will be attached to these STEM kits after the sample, which shows the process in work, in my view, in a malevolent fashion. The singular form is the jinni, from which the English word genie is derived, according to Wikipedia. The Arabic root jinin means to hide or to conceal, reflecting the invisible nature of these beings. Well, we do know they are invisible, and we do know that they are beings. They are conscious, in my view, and they do, as it says in the pre-Islamic Arabian mythology, they are capable of free will. But I believe that us as entities, because we're essentially made of the same stuff, and we have also this conscious control, we are able to control this also conscious matter in the conscious field. So with that, I will say thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions before I say bid you a note? Good night. Does anyone have any questions? If you do, yes, we nerd. Boom. I've said it before, but I'm utterly convinced that we have genie now. They can wish us bad things and they can wish us good things. I've stated at first thought what are the 3 wishes that I would give if I had the ability to make manifest the application of the jinn. Corky Goss asks, can the tool show elements? It can show pre-done analysis associated with linked items, as it currently does. But the tool can't show elements other than give you a guide. So just to let you know, when you are using an SEM, typically a light element is dark and a dark element is light. So I will just delete the stuff on here. In fact, it's just quicker to do this. And I will go into, just get rid of F and press M. And I will go over here. Here. And this is what's so beautiful about this particular lead wire experiment. The background is essentially a piece of pure copper, and that is mid-gray when you do a gamma adjust. It just auto contrasts on the microscope from which this is built. The lead is white, and this dark material here, and I will add the analysis that I've done to date on this sample on here, and I will also add, very interestingly, a image of this that was done like 9 months afterwards, because the things are looking very different. There's all kinds of crystal growths, and it's very awesome to look at. So yeah, this is carbon, and all the elements in your body are in this stellar synthesis blob that's come out of these two structures. Okay, so you can get an indication, and actually when you add just a few analysis points, and this is basically a pure lead crystal, this little hexagon here, or it might be lead oxide, but in fact I have analyzed that, so you will see analysis data points on here in the coming weeks, and I will do much better ones. I intend to do much better ones to be associated with the STEM kit. So for each of the STEM kits, I want to do incredible color macro photography at different stages after the experiment, like immediately after, 1 week after, month after, year after, because things grow on these things. They grow. Like it isn't over when you see this, right? It's leaving these active structures in there. And then I want to do that for each of the type of experiments with color macro photography and SEMs in multi-stages and so forth. So I think that would be very powerful as a supporting tool to the STEM kits themselves. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. No, you can't analyze the element exactly in here, but if some element analysis is done, then you can infer that this is a lead ball, this is a lead ball, this is a lead ball, and this is carbon coming out of this lead ball, and this is not, this is copper. And all of these fragments here are fragments of blown up lead balls that collided here and splat their load out here. Now, I want to do another test on this and at much higher resolution, because I think what you're seeing with these little splats are the subtores and subtores breaking up on the copper. And you're going to get a very similar story, in my view, in here as to what you see in the DHX2, where you've got different levels of toroidal structures. So you have the big apple, and then you got the smaller Oreos, and then what you'll see is these little ring structures around the little Oreos, these fragments. And more work needs to be done to assess what they exactly are. And it's just a whole blue ocean of opportunity, this field. And just getting people over that mental barrier, always been the aim of the project, is what we are trying to do here. And we are trying to stimulate people. Oh, you can't see anything, can you? I'm talking about this. You were just listening to me talk to myself, okay? I'm talking about these little things coming out of here. And if we go back to the Matsumoto replication here, what I was talking about here is like, this is lead, this is copper, this is carbon. And you can see these structures breaking up and spewing their guts out. So here's one that's not spewed it much. And you've got a little smear starting here, and it's broken up. So this is all lead, mostly. This is carbon, and this is copper. Over here, lead balls, and then the stellar synthesis material in between them. Here you can see the hole on the back of this one. Nice. And you can see it's crashed and just the carbon is bleeding out. Now, I'm pretty sure that when you look at the later version of this, the carbon's bled out in a large area and it's grown these copper carbonate crystals. It's pretty amazing when you see it. I mean, it is really amazing. Yeah, look, this one's almost kept its full spherical form, but you can see this kind of bow tie that it's got on one side. And of course, you can come in here and you can actually adjust the contrast and brightness, so you can get a better idea of what it's actually showing there. That some of the other structure there that you can't immediately see. Let's have a look for another one. Look at this one. It's got a big. It probably touched down here, and it started the initial breakup. And is this another one that broke up here at a separate event, or did the thing spin around? I don't know. But I'm pretty interested to see when we do more of these experiments, whether we'll see more evidence of this kind of thing, and whether these are the two kind of substructures that are breaking out of here that lead to these smears that go off in two directions. So we have two within the bigger structure. Is that what we're seeing here? I like this one here. It's a very nice breakout of the product. Okay. So, yeah. We are activating the genies. You give it a rub. You give it a rub, a bit of static electricity in the metal. You rub the static electricity into the metal and magic happens. And with that, I'll say, buenas noches, double knots, good night. This was AIM 3. My name is Bob Greenier, and I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project.